it's just very damaging to rivers, and we've been seeing continued suction dredge activity in the Clearwater Basin and the Salmon River Basin, which are obviously critical habitat for endangered salmon and steelhead. So it's a problem, and we actually track it pretty closely. We have some people who we contract with who monitor on the ground, and we filed several lawsuits in federal court against people who've been ignoring the federal requirements about suction dredge mining. Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to quickly say something about what you can do in things and suggest that those things are exceptionally important now because NEPA and the Clean Air and the Clean Water Acts are, big sections of them are being rolled back on a daily basis, basically. And you have to really know what pieces of legislation there are almost every day that are in public comment. And there's some excellent sources for where to go to find out what's in public comment for the EPA or NEPA and the National Resources Defense Council and Earth Justice and Idaho Conservation League are really good resources. So definitely join and definitely look to organizations like Earth Justice or NRDC, Great Old Broads for Wilderness, who give you actual pieces of legislation because those will give you the comment periods and the pieces of legislation. Because we, as concerned citizens, if we do not comment, we will not have our voices heard. And you have to know the specifics. So that's my soapbox.
Yeah, totally agree.
Go ahead.
3 questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
That last project, you were talking about the last agreement that they came to with Trout.
Charter Limited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did they discover the water quality was exceeding the EPA
Oh, I
limits
see.
or the CWA limit?
Okay, that was actually not with Charter Limited. That was just ICL up in North Idaho. So the EPA has a database called ECHO. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but anyone who is issued a Clean Water Act permit has to report at a certain interval their water quality data, and the EPA publishes that online. And so you can go online onto ECHO and search particular facilities, and it has a graph, and it'll show like the last 3 months, like this parameter has been violating this water quality limit. And so we monitor those, and we saw that consistently over the period of 6 months or so, this particular facility was violating some of their effluent limits.
Okay, cool. And did they stop exceeding that after you guys came to agreement?
That was part of the agreement, is
Okay.
that you need to fix it, and it needs to be permanent, because they had gone through several cycles where like every 3 years or so, they would sort of violate the same limits. It seemed like they had this recurring problem, so we said like, you have to fix it, and it needs to be permanent.
Yeah.
It has to be sustainable.
Makes sense. And then what time of year are the swans found usually? Is it twice a year?
That I don't know.
Okay.
Spring and fall.
So I just wondered if they're found on both directions of the migration.
I would imagine that's the case, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
What is ICL's source of funding?
We're funded by members like you, and also we get funding through grants, not federal grants, but just private grant money. So we'll apply to foundations that are interested in, they might be concerned about wilderness in Idaho or salmon steelhead, and we'll apply for grant funding through different organizations.
I have a second, comment. I was up at Stibnite Mine just last month, a family up in there. And they have all of these nice glossy reader boards with all of these pictures of happy trout going that way and salmon going that way. now they're gonna create all these waterways, and they're doing a really good advertising job up there.
Their public relations is very sophisticated, and they're putting a lot of resources into it, so it'll be potentially a big challenge if it's ultimately not a good thing for the environment.
So, related to that project, you mentioned, they're promoting that as a job creator, and when I think of mining, I think of old-timey mining, where there's lots and lots of guys chipping away at something, and I assume, like most jobs, that's not the case anymore, and that a lot of it can be done with far fewer people. So what is the actual job creating potential of mining?
Well, it depends on the mine. That, for example, the Kumo mine near Boise, the big giant aluminum open pit mine, has the potential, the company says, to generate several thousand jobs just to construct the mine itself. I think it has, like other extractive resource industries, been, I guess you could say, victim in some ways to automation. And so I don't know like how that compares like over time. Like if you had started any one of these mines like 50 or 100 years ago, how many more employees they would have needed as opposed to what they can do with machinery now. But it's, I mean, they can employ a lot of people and it can be at decent wages, but it comes down to at what cost. So it's a difficult calculus.
What about mining on Idaho state lands? What are our regulations? What's the situation with the state lands?
Yeah. We typically don't see a ton of mining proposals there, partly because there are so few state lands where mining would actually be economical. But state lands would be regulated by the Idaho Department of Lands and the Idaho Department of Water Resources and Environmental Quality. And they do have some laws that require sort of financial assurances like bonding, that mines bond up front that we're going to put some money aside in the case that this contamination happens. In a lot of ways that state requirements in some cases aren't sufficient. Like we would, in a perfect world, like there to be more bonding typically, that the mining company examined the worst case scenarios, like if everything fell apart, or if a huge complication in an underground mine were to occur, that they have the capacity and the money to fix it and deal with it. But they're often not evaluating the worst case scenario. So there are some state laws and regulations and administrative procedures that mine proposals on state plan do have to go through. They're just not as many and sometimes not as strong as the federal ones.
I have another question. How often and how successful are the prevention and or mitigation operations successful? I mean, are they really able to prevent contamination and or mitigate contamination that's already happened, or is this just somebody's good idea?
In my view, I think mitigation and prevention are really challenging. I haven't seen a proposal that makes me feel totally comfortable that where they're storing the mining tailings is going to be totally secure 100 years from now, or that it won't affect the groundwater, or the tailings dam won't fail ever. I think it's improved definitely over time. Like it used to be like in the Coeur d'Alene Basin, totally the Wild West, where they just threw that directly into the river. There's still 80 million tons of contaminated sediment sitting on the bottom of Lake Coeur d'Alene, and it's just so much, and dredging that lake would be so dangerous that the remedy right now is just to let it lie. But there's the potential if the lake were to, the lake is vulnerable to nutrient pollution because of runoff from the land, from property around the lake, and those nutrients can contribute to plant growth, which can suck out the oxygen of the lake. And if the lake were to go anoxic on the bottom, it would release those metals. So it's a huge problem. And I don't know, just seeing those problems makes me very hesitant. Although I know and understand we need mine to some extent minerals, I'm still very hesitant when I look at proposals.
So I think we need to stop there. Matt, would you be willing to stick around to answer